Morning, glory and evening grace, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Welcome to hour 3 of today's program. Rich Lowry is the editor of National Review. He's the host of the National Review podcast, The Editors, and he's looking very, very straight and narrow today. Rich, you're not relaxed at all. You're standing up and you've got your suit and tie on. What are you doing? Is there like a meeting with the board of the National Review?
Yeah, exactly. I am in a corporate-like conference room, so maybe that accounts for my demeanor.
No, you look very corporate. I just got done talking to Andy McCarthy, and I know you're going to have a fabulous bang-up McCarthy report this week to walk us through the intricacies of the assassination of Charlie. But I saw that an editor's dropped during my show, a new edition of the Editors. Give me a little preview about what the guys covered and who was on it. Was it Charles C.W. Cook and Noah and Jim?
And Jim. Yeah, so we talked about some of the gaslighting we've seen about Tyler Robinson, which is now totally unsustainable now that we've seen the charging document, which is even more damning than you would have expected. But we saw a lot of Democrats, of course, saying, oh, this guy, we don't know much about him, or he's from a Republican family, or he's a groyper on the right. And as the charging document makes clear, he became increasingly left-wing over the last year, more gay rights and trans rights oriented, as his mother put it, to prosecutors. And then we have these really damning text messages immediately after the assassination, where he was clearly motivated by stopping what he considered Charlie Kirk's hate. So shame on everyone who's called Charlie Kirk a hater, but this guy took it seriously and thought a gun was the only answer.
So we don't have much doubt, and I don't believe there's ever going to be much doubt. There might be some accomplices. Andy pointed out we might find some stuff out. It's a state crime, Andy told me, not a federal investigation. Mm-hmm. But tomorrow I'll have a column in the Washington Examiner that calls for a Kirk commission. Not a Warren commission to find out who did it, but more of a 9/11 commission to dive into the deep web and find out what is happening, not just here, but in the murder of Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, in the murder of the Minnesota people. Yeah, we got a long list of them back to the softball field. And of course, the left will say January 6th, but that's been asked and answered. What do you think? Do we need that, Rich? Because I have no idea what is going on in the Discord channels of this world.
Yeah, sure. Did you know what notices bulge, OWO, what's this meant?
I do now.
Yeah, you do now, right? So, yeah, I think that could be illuminating. More transparency is better. This is clearly a really prevalent phenomenon and a disturbing one, where we're acculturating, especially young men, into this thoroughgoing nihilism and also this world of gender fluidity. And it's I just want to, there are many layers to this event, but one of them is Charlie was the normal one, right? Charlie was the father, married father with 2 kids. He believed in traditional gender roles, and he was killed by someone who represented kind of a more aberrant lifestyle and point of view. But we've had a elite culture, especially on campuses, trying to tell us a lie that it's the conventional views that are out of the mainstream and that are wrong and perverse and hateful.
Now, I believe Chris Rufo is right when he wrote the American Cultural Revolution about what's happened to campuses, but I don't think it's applicable here or at Annunciation Church in Minneapolis or at the Nashville shooter. They self-radicalized, and they did it on the web. And I don't know what to do about it, because the First Amendment protects with like an iron wall. I know the First Amendment law pretty well and been teaching it for 30 years. You really can't regulate the web, but you can educate parents and a culture as to what's going on there in the way that Andy McCarthy did in his book Willful Blindness, which first opened my eyes to Wahhabism.
Yeah, totally. Right. And one reason we're never going to quite go back to how bad things were in the late 60s and the early 70s, people forget there were quasi-insurgent groups in the United States of America, right? You could be the Symbionese Liberation Army and survive for a pretty long time in Oakland. You'd have a safe house, you'd operate on cash. There are no credit cards, there are no mobile phones tracking you everywhere, no surveillance cameras. So there are, in fact, these ungoverned spaces that allow these groups to operate. So if you're a group now, we're going to run you down, you're not going to exist. But if you're an individual, that's much more difficult. So that's why the political terrorism that we've seen has, as you point out, been self-radicalizing individuals. And I don't know what to do about that. If we had a healthier culture, it would help a lot. If this guy were going out and playing touch football every weekend with a bunch of friends, that might have helped. But we have people just
But
sitting at
here's what
home.
scares me.
Yeah.
He seems like a traditional LDS family, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That means he went to seminary before school 3 or 4 times a week. He's a religious family. Their theology is not my theology, but it's a very disciplined theology, and the family structure is intact. And most of the LDS that I know, from Mitt Romney on down to my buddy O'Brien, they're all wonderful people. And I don't know how a kid like that can go off the rails, and I think we need to know. Jonathan Haidt did the book The Anxious Generation,
Yeah.
and that's part of it. But that was really about teenage girls and what happens to their self-image and stuff. It wasn't about this.
Yeah. So clearly, this is not a story of childhood deprivation. It's not a story of mental illness. I mean, he was very rational, and what he was doing was horrible, but he went about it in a very rational manner. This wasn't a guy out of his mind, and he was just sucked into this world. So I wrote a column about this today, and one of the concluding thoughts is, I don't know what to do about this.
Yeah, well, that you and me, but let me ask you about the aftermath for Turning Point. It's a behemoth, and behemoths have to be fed by dynamic leaders. You know how hard it is to lead an organization. Mm-hmm. National Review does its, I guess it's every other year you do your conference where you gather in all the young people. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it was at a National Review conference that my son first decided he wanted to be in politics. He was like 14 years old and heard Larry Kudlow and Arthur Brooks talk. It was fabulous. His world exploded. But Turning Point it's a vast enterprise. It takes a lot of money. Can it keep going?
Yeah, that's what you're putting your finger on something really important. It's something I fear, right? Could this have been an effective assassination in a sense? Because movements like that, you need a charismatic leader. Now, maybe they'll institutionalize themselves, and you won't depend on someone with a really unique set of talents and drive of a Charlie Kirk, but I'm not sure. So at the moment, this has been a galvanizing moment. Everyone who is on the fence wants to form a chapter. Great, fantastic. I'm worried about whether that will be captured in a way Charlie would have been able to do it over the medium and long term.
Now, you may be able to help me with this. I'm going to ask Continetti on Friday because he wrote the book The Right. Young Americans for Freedom was sort of a precursor to Turning Point, and it was Goldwater-ish. And Nixon said of the Goldwater movement to me in 1978, you can't win with just them, but you can't win without them. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Republicans can win without the kind of inroads that Charlie pioneered among the youth demographic. But I don't know, how did YAF come to be and who kept it going?
Well, Bill Buckley and the Sharon Statement were a key moment.
I don't know the Sharon Statement.
Yeah, so the Sharon Statement, named after Sharon, Connecticut, that's the Buckley homestead, had a bunch of college students. I don't know how old he was himself at that point. Still relatively young, but much more established than the average college student. And they hashed out this statement that's conservative, libertarian kind of statement, kind of credo. And they wanted to counter the Students for Democratic Society. And this had never occurred to me until I actually heard Matt say it a while ago. The conservative movement has always had a huge student element, right? And we kind of lost touch with that. A lot of us were despairing. If you'd asked me years ago, what can we do to win over college students? Like, I don't know. I don't think it's very promising. But Charlie saw the opening, went there and did it himself, and then gave a political expression through his political organizing for the Trump campaign. It's just an extraordinary accomplishment. But Goldwater was significant respects the youth movement. Reagan, as you know, had a lot of youth appeal, and so did Trump. Thanks in part.
And Karl Rove ran the CRs when I was in college. He taught field school. That's where I met Karl in 1974, teaching young activists how to be effective in campaigns. I don't think the RNC's in that business anymore. I think they outsourced it to Charlie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing about what Charlie did, it was organic. As you know, political candidates, when they're out on the stump, They hear things that you don't, they learn things, and if they're really good, they adjust. So Charlie went out there wearing a t-shirt when he could gather a crowd of 15 and saw how it's done, saw what moved people, saw what worked, and then built on that like a good candidate. And it just requires, it's a really unique skill. You could, it's the kind of thing, a lot of Trump events. I'm like, you could have 100 political consultants in the room trying to figure out how Trump should do something, and they would never be able to figure out the way he did. You could have 100 of the best political minds try to do what Charlie did, and wouldn't have been able to do it without his unique talents.
It was an incredible. I saw him do it in 18.